I'm Christy Moore, and I am here with my partner, Harley Dufek, and we love to tell stories about the things that we experience in real estate. And I think that it's really good indication to show what happens when you work with somebody that may not have the experience that you need to avoid the costly mistakes that a lot of people make when buying or selling a house. So today I think we have a really good story because it's our own story. It's one of our own properties that we bought and renovated. And we had a major hiccup in the inspection, but we were prepared for it. So we always tell sellers to be prepared for their home inspection, right?
Right.
And one of the things that we always recommend that people do is a pre-inspection.
Yes.
So a lot of times what happens is people are buying or selling older homes and they don't know all the hidden things that can be a problem in older homes, like the Orangeburg drain tiles collapsing, the drain lines being old, or the water lines being old.
Now, what do you mean by old?
Okay, maybe not old.
What do you mean by
old? Of a specific material.
You're not calling me old, are you? So let's define what an old house is.
So an old house, I guess would be like the 50s or built in the 50s or
that's what I would say. Anything pre-50s, you should really.
There's a lot of things that can be wrong.
Look at it a little more in depth,
right,
for sure.
And I think one of the biggest things that people miss that they don't know about, again, whether you're buying or selling, are the drain and water lines in the older homes. Because if they're galvanized or cast iron, you know, a lot of times they could be failing or corroded and you don't even know about it. And it's a giant expense if you have to replace it. I mean, we had one client who had got the drain line inspected and it was corroded, and it was a $30,000 fix to get it all replaced. And sometimes it's not corroded, but you don't know because it's a hidden defect in the property. Unless you do further inspections, you just wouldn't know otherwise.
So how do you know this?
I mean, the main reason we know is because we've been through it before. I mean, It's really just experience. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. And everything that we've learned in this business and everything that we put in place for our processes and our clients is based on all of our years of experience and all of the houses, you know, that we've sold and all the things that we've come across. Anytime something does happen, we make sure that we add it to our process to make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. And luckily, we've never had this actually happen to one of our clients because we are experienced in this situation. So let's talk about the story that we wanted to originally tell.
Let's start from the beginning.
Okay, so let's talk about the story of the sewer line.
So once upon a time, Christy and I wanted to buy a house to flip.
Yes.
In Arlington.
Yes.
Arlington is known for old houses.
That's correct.
Very, very bad water problems generally, and sewer problems.
Well, and a lot of times you have failed drain tiles, the Orangeburg drain tiles, which we experienced both of those issues with this particular property.
Yep. And so before we made the purchase, Arlington's North Arlington area, super hot area. This was an off-market deal, multiple offers. We ended up getting it, but what did we do on our due diligence?
We did a sewer scope.
Sewer scope. What is that?
So a sewer scope is when they put a camera through the sewer line or the main water line, depending on what you're testing, but the main water line had already been replaced on this property. So we knew that this could be a problem. So we had a master plumber come out and put the camera through the sewer line, and Harley was smart enough to video him doing the sewer scope because what had happened? His camera was broken or something?
Well, so they normally when they put it through, they either don't have a recording device, or in this case they did have one, but the guy just forgot his SD card to put it in there.
So it recorded. It didn't record on.
and we don't have a lot of time with making it. It's a very competitive deal. We had to have it done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we hired him as buyers to protect our interests, and that's what we recommend that other buyers do as well if they're buying an older home, to verify what type of pipes they are, and if they are cast iron or galvanized, to have a sewer or water line scope, because it's amazing what you'll find when you do these inspections. And like I said, it's a giant repair, because if it does fail and it backs up into the house, that's more than just the sewer line. It's more than just the drain line. It is all of the damage that's done to the property on top of that. So,
and how much is the inspection itself?
A few $100. I mean, it depends, like anywhere from $200 to $500, depending on if you have to get
cheap
out
insurance
the last minute.
Yeah.
And he said that everything was fine. It just needed a cleaning. And fast forward to when we're now selling the house.
To a real estate agent.
To a real estate agent who may or may not know the area. I don't really know. But what happened was, during her inspection, the inspector took off the cap to the sewer line and ran his own camera through the sewer line. Now, it's very important to understand, an inspector is a generalist. He's not a specialist.
Right.
So what's that mean? What's the difference between a generalist and a specialist?
Well, so we're not talking the master plumber we had out. We're talking the
general
buyer's inspector of
home
the home.
Inspector.
They're looking at things in a general manner. And by the way, the inspector really overstepped his bounds with this. That was another issue, but it can happen, I guess, and it did in this case, where the inspector should not have been doing plumbing work and putting scopes down sewers, which he did. So
yeah, without our permission.
Without our permission.
Gotta love that.
We're working with another real estate agent, by the way. So.
and
yeah.
What did the inspector say? I mean, the house was in perfect condition. We renovated everything. Everything was completely redone, all permitted work, and inspectors trying to find something. Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, $100,000 remodel. Everything has been touched. Everything has been done. Sewer has been inspected now twice, and they're claiming that the entire bottom end of the pipe has been eroded and out.
Completely gone. He said it was gone. He said the pipe was gone, which obviously was not true, because he's not a plumber, so he can't say that.
And what did they want for this?
Well, originally they wanted half of the cost of the replacement, which was $20,000. Because they said it was going to cost anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000.
Yep.
And we said no. And we could say no.
Right.
Because we had already had a master plumber inspect the sewer line. So we knew that it wasn't a problem. We even have him on video saying, oh, this is great. I mean, it's good as new. Just clean it out and it's good as new. And then they have someone who is not a plumber look at the sewer line and say that it's completely eroded and absolutely needs to be completely replaced.
Yeah. What he was looking at was actually a very normal thing that you will see in a sewer line, which is calcification. And then and it was in the bottom end. I mean, this is a 50-year-old pipe, so it's going to have some calcification. And in that calcification, there is a small canyon in a few feet of the line that the water carved out, just like the Grand Canyon, if you will. So it just goes through this layer of calcium, which doesn't affect the pipe, by the way. In fact, it's actually good, because in a calcium environment, that's way better than having acid in there in an acidic environment, which would rot out your pipe.
Yeah.
So.
And we are not licensed plumbers. That's our disclaimer. We are
Yes.
not contractors, even though we play one on TV. But it's so important to have good information and
Yes.
quality experts on your side, because they will know these things. They will know what you should look into and what's a big deal, what's not a big deal, what's something that needs further inspection. We even had buyers where I told them to walk away from a deal because the seller wouldn't allow us to scope the drain line, and they had already replaced the water line. So it was like, I'm pretty sure if they already replaced the water line that you're going to have the same problems with the drain line. And since they wouldn't allow us to scope it, I told them to walk away from the deal, because I couldn't in my heart allow them to buy a house that I know most likely is going to have sewage back up and into their property and ruin their whole entire property at some point. And it was in the age of, when that becomes a common problem. And like I said, if the seller, I think the seller said, oh, we know that it's okay, it's all good. And we're like, I mean, as much as we like to take your word, that would be great, but we really need to get it
Now,
re-inspected.
if the seller had done a pre-inspection and a pre-sewer scope before they're selling it, would you and showed you that it was good, what would happen then?
They would have bought the house.
They would have bought the house. They would have made the sale.
It would have made the sale.
Over a $300 to $500 inspection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we think it's so important that you get great information when you're buying or selling. If you're selling and we can see that there are possible issues that could come up after you go under contract, why in the world would you want to have your deal fall apart when you're in the middle of moving and you aren't, or it may or may not know where you're going, and you're just in the middle of all of this, and now your buyer wants to do a sewer scope and it's now a $30,000 repair. It would be so much better to just know that information up front, rather than waiting until you're under contract and now it becomes a big deal and then it falls apart and then you have to go back on the market and now you have to disclose, and there's so many other things that can come out of that. So it's so important to have solid information and people that are looking out for you in the transaction. I mean, we've seen it all the way up to $80,000 that it can cost people without good information. And that's why we're so, some people might call us anal and some people might think that it's annoying with how detailed we are with this kind of stuff. And yes, it does take more work up front, but if you're properly prepared when you go on the market, or you're properly prepared when you're buying, then you won't get yourself into those kinds of situations that are incredibly expensive. And that's really what we're trying to do. Is
you're saying you're anal about your sewer scope? Okay.
I don't know. We'll see if we'll leave this one in there. Yeah, okay. Yes, exactly. Yes, I am anal about my sewer scope. It's incredibly important. I don't ever want anybody to go through that. I mean, that's traumatizing. If you have to live out of your house for a few months while you have cleaning up poop in your house and it's destroyed all your stuff, and yeah, that's no fun.
You know, and we wouldn't have bought the house if it had,
or
that,
we would have had a reduction in the price.
Yeah. So we knew what we had, and that makes a strong seller, because you know, when you're a seller, you give up 80% of your negotiation power once you sign. Okay, so that's and at the time we're under contract. We're under contract with the buyer. So they have the power shifts to them in the negotiation. And how do you keep that 20% on your side? You have knowledge, you have information, you have the correct information. You know how to get it. So the buyer actually bought the house, by the way.
Yeah. Well, they threatened to back out, and then they sent it to the wrong email. But that's a whole other.
We'll talk about that.
That's a whole other video about knowing your contracts and how things work.
Right.
And yeah, but they tried to back out, but they sent the notice to void to the wrong email, so technically it wasn't valid.
Yep.
And but it was great to come from that standpoint of strength of saying, no,
absolutely,
I am not giving you any more money. No. Because we can sell it to somebody else who's not being ridiculous and understands that a master plumber knows more than your general home inspector, who seemed to me like maybe he was just trying to get his buddies involved because he had all of his friends' contact information in there.
And don't we have that inspection company on our blacklist? I mean, we do keep a blacklist, actually, of vendors, and they're on it.
Well, they're a little overzealous.
There are some inspectors we call deal killers. They are very overzealous and overstep their bounds, like in this case, and do things that they really shouldn't do and are outside their licensing scope.
Yeah, because we had two plumbers say that it was the master plumber that originally inspected it, and then the plumber who did the work in the house, who replaced all the pipes, and they both said it was fine. So, I mean, are we going to listen to a general home inspector and an agent, or listen to our plumbers?
You know, and so how much did they want for that again? $20,000?
$20,000.
$20,000. And I think that
and then the price kept climbing the longer we were negotiating.
Right. Yeah, they did.
And then they started asking for all kinds of other stuff too. And
right.
It's just like, no.
It just opens the floodgates. And so if we didn't have that sewer scope done, what would we have done?
We would have had another plumber look at it, an actual plumber. But it would have been a tougher negotiation, because now the plumber is representing a seller in a transaction versus we had an inspection as a buyer buying the house.
Right.
So, you know, our argument was like, look, if it needed to be replaced, they would have told us that, because that was an inspection when we were buying, not when we were selling, where they might be a little bit more geared towards protecting the seller.
Right.
Right? If you want to play that game.
Yep.
And I think in this situation, it was just so interesting to me, because it's always good when you tell people to do things because you do them yourselves, and then you have a great story of why they should do it, and it was just validation on why we're so hell-bent on telling people to get pre-inspections before they sell, and knowing what they're getting into, and not having those kinds of surprises. And I mean, the home inspection is definitely the worst part of the transaction, with the exception of buyers not getting their financing at the last minute, but that's a whole other video.
And so we actually advised the buyer, the real estate agent that was buying this, to get special insurance. Actually, there is insurance, believe it or not, that will cover your sewer pipes, and from breakage, blockages, backing up, things like that. And here's the thing, is that you have a master plumber saying to you today via a sewer scope that your sewer is fine. It is not broken. It's flowing water. It's not backed up. And that's the time to get an insurance policy on it, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
well, and there are companies that will do, and we've had those experiences where there's like polybutylene and those other types of pipes in the water main going out to the street, and you know, Dominion will actually cover that for like $10 a month or something like that.
Right.
So there are other options.
Inexpensive. Yeah.
Yeah. So. But it just depends on the type of pipe that it is.
Yes.
Too.
Depends on the type of pipe. So just knowing where you're at with the transaction, that's the key right there.
Yeah. So we hope that you found this video helpful. If you would like more information about buying or selling, please call, text, or email us.